Thank you for returning to Hobby Shop 1983, presented by page 121. So you're back at the Hobby Shop and you're browsing your Traveler stuff and you realize you've got a problem. It's a good problem, but you've got a problem. Traveler is going big. Traveler reissued a lot of their games in a larger size in 1983, and I'm going to be taking a look at some of the offerings they had. Posed a real problem in 1983. I wasn't making all that much money. I had a car to maintain. I was dating my wife. All kinds of calling on my money. And here comes Traveler with all these big, beautiful, different books. Admittedly, the first couple were out in 82, but it continued in 83. It was expensive. But like I say, a good problem to have. So while I was splitting my time between comic books, my car, my girlfriend, now my wife, and my role playing, I had to choose selectively because there are also video games in there. Donkey Kong was pretty new still. Mario Brothers was on its way. Still playing Asteroids because I loved it. We also went to the show a lot. We saw War Games. We saw, Superman 3. And War Games, great film in 83. Lots of calls on my money, and then Traveler comes out with all this stuff. Game Designers Workshop, gosh, she caused me some problems. But today we're going to start looking with the Traveler book, which was out in 82, and I'll explain what's going on with this, and then we'll go through that whole stack I just showed. Today on Hobby Shop 1983, brought to you by page 121. All right, you just finished listening to Modern Love by David Bowie in your car. You shut it off, hoping it'll start again, because I know I did in 1983. And you're going into the Hobby Shop. And what are you seeing? You're seeing the Traveler book in hardcover. This came out in 82, but the rules of Hobby Shop 83 are anything that was out on the shelves before January 31st, 1983. This guy is all the little black books put together in one big black book. So you got everything you needed right here in one nice cover. As you can see, this guy saw a lot of love. This guy was brought to a ton of games because sometimes I didn't know what game system I'd be running if I'd be running. Occasionally I'd get to a game and find out that the game master, for whatever reason, couldn't make it. And I like to carry my books around in case I was called on to run something. So here we have the original little black books put together in a nice big book. Not going to go through every page of this, but it was a nice offering. You got everything right here under one cover. You got the Adventure Shadows also, which was really nice. There's a second adventure in the back here. Exit Visa. So you got a lot in this book. You get the Traveler's Guide to the Universe. You got a lot of information on what the Imperium is, how you move around, what the mega corporations are. This was just a ton of stuff. Some of it was from Journal of Traveler's Aid Society. Some of it was just in the books themselves, the core books. And then we got a nice list here of all the Travelers series. By this time, they'd already published a couple of Best of JTAZ, Volume 1 and Volume 2. I have a couple of those. Maybe I'll feature them someday. With select articles that were more popular. And roll. Oh, yeah, a buddy of mine did this for me. I forgot about this. Yeah, a buddy of mine put this in the book with my permission. He had borrowed it one time, and he asked me if I wanted it added, and I said certainly. He did a nice job on that. So it's just a percentage chance of rolling whatever you're going to roll on so many dice. So then, this was a few years later that I got it, but the Traveler book came out in softcover as well. Nice picture of Mark Miller. This also was 82. Traveler was trying to grow from being the guys in the strange little pamphlet books to being a legitimate game that people thought about. I know in our group, Traveler was looked upon as the game you kind of needed a PhD to play. There's a lot of math to it. Your character died in character creation, so it was really tough to get a character going. That was the reputation Traveler had. And I did everything I could as a player and a GM to dispel that because, frankly, it's not true. It wasn't true then. I think the Traveler had another little problem going for it, and I'll explain that in a moment. Traveler was very popular in 1983. It was, when you talked about role-playing games, you talked about D&D, of course, but then in the next breath, you started talking about Traveler. Traveler was always one of the big dogs, and very much had earned its essentially number 2 spot. Uh, Traveler was my favorite science fiction game, and this is from a diehard Gamma World guy. But Gamma World, Star Frontiers, and Traveler are all different games. They play differently. So these are the first two that were out in '82 as GDW was going big. Then we got the Traveler Adventure. This was all new material, primarily by the Keith brothers. And this guy was out in 1983. And this is one big traveler that takes you all over the Spinward Marches in the excellently named March Harrier ship. I really enjoyed this. I was in this campaign. My original Traveler GM was running this campaign when he fell in love and kind of broke off of gaming, and handed me the torch for the Traveler campaign. So I started as a player in this one, and then carried on as a GM in this one for a while. And then, unfortunately, the campaign itself kind of just dissolved, as campaigns have a way of doing. This is just a nice adventure. I like this adventure. I think the word iconic is way overused in our society, but if it were to be used, this adventure would definitely deserve that word. This was just a very well done adventure. It was written by Frank Chadwick, John Harshman, J. Andrew Keith, Mark Miller, and Lauren Wiseman. That is certainly an all-star cast of authors. One of these days, I will go through the Traveler Adventure. The 40 years since this book was published, I will do it, and I will do it with some spoilers. It won't be today. I just wanted to show it as one of the offerings from 1983. I paid $7 for this particular copy. My buddy had a copy of this. Somehow I didn't get his copy, so I was able to find one on closeout right around that time, and I bought it. I have no idea what happened to his other Traveler stuff. I wasn't able to buy all of it when he first dropped from Traveler. I bought a good chunk of it, but there were a few things that I think he sold to another guy he knew who had played Traveler with him at college. I think that's where it went. But there you go. There's the Traveler Adventure. I will be taking a look at this sometime down the line, just not today. So now, to make things even harder for the average gamer on a budget, we have Traveler, the Game of the Far Future, in the starter edition. This was an entry, if you will. I think this went for $12 or $15. I'm having a hard time confirming any of the prices on these. They were all around $12 or $15. But this was a starter set for Traveler that I have just loaded with all kinds of stuff. I forgot this stuff was in here. Ha! Some of my GURP stuff. Captain Starfleet. I forgot I had these in here. I forgot I had these. These are just some hex sheets from Starfleet battles that I've used for Traveler over the years. These are kind of neat. But this guy came with all the charts and tables, the rules booklet, everything you got in the first 3 books, the original books, and then you got Shadows, Mission on Mithril, and then a map of Mithril. The idea was this was the gateway. You would buy this box set. Pardon me. You would buy this box set for $12 or $15, I'm not sure which, and this would open the door for you into Traveler. I already had the original core rules when I bought this, but I didn't care. Anything Traveler, if I saw it on the shelves, I grabbed it. This box, as you saw, I carried around all the way through my GURPS days. Another one that was out in '83 was a reissue of the excellent Snapshot. My buddy that I played Snapshot with, and another one of these that's coming up, had the original small box Snapshot. This is the game of fighting inside the ship. It's a turn-based thing, turn-based point system, so you have 8 movement points. And on those 8 movement points, you're going to do 2 points to move, 1 point to turn, a point to hit a button on a ship. You had the nice 15 millimeter layout of the 200-ton Free Trader Beowulf, and you would fight your way through the ship. You had little counters that fit into these hexes. This game was a lot of fun. My buddy and I did play the heck out of this back in the early 80s in both his small box and this box. Even after he stopped playing Traveler, he and I, of course, remained friends, and we still played some Traveler, just he and I, and Snapshot was one of those games. Another one of those games was Mayday. We played Mayday primarily out of this box. I love the frame artwork there of the early 80s computer image. Mayday also was out in 83. And this was getting expensive because in 83 we also had, of course, arcades. I was buying comic books at the time, going to the show, dating my girlfriend, now my wife. Role-playing was very expensive, and especially when GDW was coming out with all these great things. So Mayday is the game of ship combat. You got the ship counters, and you got the little space maps, and your ships would blow each other up based on the Mayday rules. I will take a look at Mayday on the channel and go over the rules and everything, and maybe even run a simulation sometime down the line. But Mayday was another one of those that was just adding to my financial woes in 1983. But again, a good problem to have. And the last thing I'm going to look at that Game Designers Workshop dropped for us in 83 is Tarsus. I looked at Tarsus once before on the channel. I went through detail on the box itself about a year or maybe even 2 years ago. Tarsus is one of my favorite offerings from Game Designers Workshop because it was original to this box set and it gave us a whole world to adventure on. It's set in District 268, I believe. I know it's in the Spinward Marches. I believe it's in 268. And we got a lot of information in this box. You've got the world data for Tarsus itself. And Tarsus, it is in District 268. Tarsus, I went through this box set a couple of years ago on the channel as well. Tarsus was just a nice adventure world. I have run this world many, many times with many different groups. You got a couple of adventures to start with. I've run the Susag adventure several times. I love Susag. And beyond that, you got, 5 adventures in here. You got the subsector map, District 268. This is long before the days of Traveler map, folks. These things were gold. To have a reference like this that I could just put on the table and have the players look at and get an idea of where they were headed and where their ship was just wonderful to have. And then, of course, we've got the world map of Tarsus itself. That's beautiful. And then we have a nice closer map of just a chunk of Tarsus where some of the adventures take place. And again, this was $12 to $15. And you also got character cards. These are individual characters that are made up, ready to go. This helped a ton because I would be able to, at the time I was able to Xerox these, and I just Xeroxed them, cut them out, and handed them out as player characters. So I was ready to go at a moment's notice with any kind of Traveler game anybody wanted to play, as long as it was Tarsus. That's one thing I do think Mongoose needs to take a look at. I would like some characters, guys. I know I can generate my own. I know all those truths. That being said, I wouldn't mind if there were some in the various offerings to give a little bit more personality to some of the offerings. It's something I've mentioned before, but there we have it. That was one of the things I always loved about the original Traveler stuff, is that there were a bunch of different examples of players in there. If you were in a hurry, you could just take them and slap them together. So now I'm going to go ahead and show the entire stack. This is all the stuff that was out in 83. This does not include any of their pamphlet-sized adventures that were going on as well. This was kind of a special line. Now, I mentioned also that there was, I thought, a couple of reasons that Traveler didn't catch on as big as AD&D. And one of the other things is, I think these games, I know that a lot of people that I gamed with thought Traveler was that game with those little books, but also you had to learn all these other games in order to play Traveler. There was a misconception, at least in our area, that you had to know how to play all the box sets, and that all comprised Traveler. And try as I would to tell people, no, you don't need to know anything about the box sets, you just play the game. It was pretty prevalent, at least in our area. Let me know in the comments below if you experienced any of that, and if there was any pushback on Traveler because of that, because I did experience a fair amount of it. I was able to overcome it. I would just show people how to play the game, and they would do just fine with it. But it was a little something to deal with at the beginning. So there you have it. That's our trip to the Hobby Shop 1983. It's the last of the series. I hope you enjoyed our trip back to the Hobby Shop. Just think back to your favorite hobby store, where you used to spend as much time as you could browsing all the treasures and taking home what you could afford. I want to thank you for your time and thank you very much for this trip back to Hobby Shop 1983. I really enjoyed going there. I hope you enjoyed coming along with me. And I'll see you next time on page 121.